Despite being one of the biggest games of all time, Larian Studios, the geniuses behind Baldur's Gate 3, has completely ruled out any possibility of future DLC or even a sequel for the Baldur's Gate franchise. This comes as a huge surprise, especially considering back in 2023 at Gamescom, Larian Studios told IGN that they were in discussions to begin DLC for Baldur's Gate 3, but at the time, they were more focused on releasing free patches for the community. As reported by IGN, Larian Studios CEO Sven Vink recently spoke at a GDC panel and revealed that they have no plans for any future Baldur's Gate content. The CEO further went on to say that instead of expanding the story on the already existing franchise, the studio wants to move away from Baldur's Gate and D&D content, instead shifting their focus to other unnamed projects. Now, before the panic sets in hearing this, let's break some of these statements down. I won't lie, it's not great news, considering the award-winning studio will be stepping away from the franchise, but it doesn't signal the end completely for Baldur's Gate. The responsibility will now shift towards the publisher, Wizards of the Coast, which boomers such as myself may recognize the name as the company responsible for the OG Pokemon cards, and they will likely have to find another studio to take the reins of Baldur's Gate. This announcement does come as a complete shock, considering Baldur's Gate 3 was crowned the Game of the Year and has had multiple free updates that have greatly improved the game post-launch. But while it may come as a shock to us, it seems that this has been in the works for a while, as Larian Studios has huge plans, quite literally, for a, and I quote, very big RPG that will dwarf them all. While we don't know the specifics about this game, it has been in the works for years now and is shaping up to be the ultimate RPG. Speaking to GameSpot, Vink said that the idea was in development even before Baldur's Gate 3, and that the game was actually part of a larger plan that he has towards what he calls the very big RPG that will dwarf them all. And it seems that it's not the studio holding themselves back, but rather the hardware they're developing this ultimate RPG for, as Vink mentioned that the studio's next title likely won't be this game, as there is still tech that the studio doesn't have access to yet to fulfill their grand vision. And it's likely that it won't even arrive on the PS5 too. As the CEO went on to say, I don't know what the specs are going to be on the next gen. I hope we're going to get something that's going to bring us closer. It sounds surreal to think that Baldur's Gate 3 was really just a stepping stone towards Larian Studios' ultimate RPG game, considering the huge success of the Game of the Year Titan. But this is in fact just one stepping stone, albeit a pretty significant one, as the master plan has actually been in place since way back in 2014, with the introduction of Divinity Original Sin, the studio's first majorly successful title. Each game was a way of the studio sharpening their tools, with Original Sin having a heavy emphasis on multiplayer, followed by the sequel really showcasing and developing the storytelling skills of Larian. While this ultimate RPG is shrouded in mystery, one thing fans will be very happy to hear, Larian wants the game's development to be much quicker than that of Baldur's Gate 3. Vink once again explained to GameSpot, 6 years is too long, we didn't want it to be 6 years, I think if we could do something in 4 years, we'll be happy. This is obviously great news for fans, but there is a catch. The timer only really begins once the hardware capabilities align with Larian's vision, so we could still be waiting quite a while. So what happens in the meantime? Will the Baldur's Gate franchise just be abandoned and tossed to the side? Well, considering the game made Hasbro, who owns Wizards of the Coast, a tasty little sum of $90 million, I think it's safe to say they'll be extremely keen to find someone to steer the ship to success once again for the franchise. Whoever steps up next to develop the next Baldur's Gate will certainly have some big shoes to fill, but as long as we get more Baldur's Gate content, I'm all here for it. And let's remember, the devs responsible for Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 aren't exactly slouches in the gaming industry. BioWare made the first 2 games in the Baldur's Gate series, with Larian Studios joining for the 3rd game following their success in the Divinity series. And I'm sure I don't need to list BioWare's achievements in gaming, but I'm gonna do it anyway. With the devs responsible for titles such as Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, the Mass Effect series, and of course, the Dragon Age series. Conveniently, pretty much all of their big hitter titles are RPGs, making them in theory the perfect match. Add in the fact that they developed the first 2 Baldur's Gate games, and the reunion starts to make a lot of sense. The only question is, what is the relationship between Wizards of the Coast and BioWare? Did it end on good terms following Larian Studios taking over the 3rd entry? Who knows, but could this potentially be the trigger for BioWare to make a valiant return to Baldur's Gate? Only time will tell, and while you're waiting and we've got you on the channel, YouTube's algorithm has recommended this video just for you. So if you enjoyed this one, why not go check it out?